Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and welcome to this new video. Oh, I do hope you're all keeping well. I almost forgot that part. Welcome to this new video back on the Velocity One Flightstick. This time though, I'm going to try it with a couple of other games. It's a question I often get asked, will it work with such and such a game? So I'm going to try it with Elite Dangerous. As you can see here, I'll show you my setup. And with Star Citizen as well, and it works with any other games that supports a HOTAS or flight stick or joystick. The Velocity One stick will work with them as well. But I'll show you my setup and how it works with Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen. So like I said, I'll show you my setup in the games themselves. Then I'll put the camera so you can see me using the flight stick and using the different controls with the games. And I'll come back later and tell you whether I recommend the Velocity One Flightstick with Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen. So let's not dilly-dally, let's get on with this video. Okay, so I'm full screen with Elite Dangerous Horizons. I'll talk more about the different packs later that you can get for Elite. Fantastic game, especially if you got VR. But let's go to options. Now, we'll go to controls. If you thought Flight Simulator 2020 or Microsoft Flight Sim was difficult to set up, with these two games I'm about to show you, this will change your mind about Microsoft Flight Sim completely. There's a lot more controls that you can set up with Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen, in fact, and it can get very complex. Going into the options, I mean, let's just go back a little bit there. If you go into controls, you've got general controls, ship controls, SRV. Basically, with Elite Dangerous Horizons, you can go on different planets and drive around them. So you can set up your controls separately for the SRV, a little car buggy. You can drive around on planets to the ship. But it's the ship controls, that's the main bulk of the game. That's the main bulk you'll be flying, that I've set up. Now here, there's a drop-down menu. The Velocity One Flightstick, I'm surprised, doesn't seem to have its own separate menu here. It's just got generic joystick. Now, I've set a few controls up, which are on my, that's why it's called custom for me, because I've set a few controls up. And without going too deep, I'm not going to make this a setup video. I'm just going to show you how this Velocity One Flightstick works with Elite Dangerous, whether it works well or not. I've set the yaw axis to my left and right of the stick, so I yaw left and right when I move the stick left and right. Roll axis is with the twist axis of the Velocity One Flightstick. I'll show you that later. Pitch axis, obviously pulling the stick forward and backwards, all fairly straightforward. These things next to it regular, you can either have it inverted or regular, which means it's normal, it's not inverted, and that's regular is the way it should be controlled. I'll show you that in the game later. Flight thrust, you've got a lot of different thrust in Elite Dangerous. You've got lateral thrust, vertical thrust, thrust forward and thrust backwards. All different kinds of thrust. Different to something like a flight simulator, because you don't have gravity in space, of course. Well, certainly not much. So when you move your ship, you'll be using thrust or thrusters to move your ship around. I'll show you these later, but I've got these set up on a couple of different buttons. Moves the ship left and right, so when I'm coming into dock, that's quite handy. These two, that's my B7 and B8 on the Velocity One Flightstick. Moves my thrust up and down, so I can thrust up and down. Like I said, it doesn't make sense at the moment. I'll show you that later. Flight throttle. Now, you get different. With Elite Dangerous, by default, you've got a full range, which means if you have your throttle, I'm using the left-hand throttle lever for throttle, by the way. If you have it in the center, If you move it back, you'll move backwards. If you move it forward, you'll move forward. If you look at the whole task one, it's got a detent. That's what that detent is there for. So by default, this is on full range. I've just changed that to forward only. So when I move my throttle forward from 0, it will just go forward. If I move it fully back, it will just stop the shift. I do have a button set up. Now, I don't remember where that will be. Forward only throttle. I don't remember where that will be in this. Let's just see. Oh, yeah, no, it's not. Anyway, I do have a button. Oh, yeah, there you go. Forward only reverse. If I toggle that, I've actually got it set up. Good thing with the flight stick, it comes with a couple of detents. 4 detents, in fact. 2 for each lever. I'll show you that later, but if you move it forward, there's a little detent. I've got it set for thrust when I move it fully forward, my throttle. When I move it back, I've got it set for toggle reverse. And this works remarkably well in Elite Dangerous with this flight stick. Hope that makes sense. It won't make too much sense until I actually show you, give you a physical demonstration. I've got a lot of other buttons set up for things like open my cargo bay doors, targeting, warp drive or jump drive. Can't remember what they call it now, but it'll come to me once I get into the game. So when you want to jump to another planet, for things like switching weapons, you get a lot of different weapons in Elite Dangerous 2. So a lot of different controls that I've got set up, which I won't go over now. I'll cancel that because I don't want to change anything. What I'll do, I'll set my camera up. Let's just go back to the main menu. Set my camera up so you can see me using my Velocity One Flightstick with Elite Dangerous. Okay, so I'm in the game now. I'm at Whitelaw Enterprise. Hopefully you can see my Velocity One Flightstick. You can see I've got a different colour scheme going on there. Why not? I'm playing a different game. Let's give you an overview of some of these controls. The first one I'll do is H2. Now, I could set this up. If I move the mouse like this, or move this, nothing's going to happen. It doesn't move my view around. If I click that in, excuse a couple of speakers I've got set up, it just gives me more oomph with the game. You really get some incredible sounds with Elite Dangerous. Anyway, once I click H2, I can move around with my mouse. Now I could effectively set this up so if I click it in, I can move my view around with this H2. I don't do that because I play Elite Dangerous mainly, or my main purpose is to play it in VR. If you have a VR headset for Flight Simulator or for other reasons, and you've not tried Elite Dangerous in VR yet, you are missing out big time. This won awards, like the best VR game when VR came out for it. It's an incredible experience. If you like space games, even just a tiny bit, this is immense. So anyway, that's why I've got my mouse set up. Typically, in VR or not, I'll have my mouse next to my controller. And it's another good thing about this Velocity One Flightstick, is the size of it. It's a small unit. So my mouse is next to me so I can interact with the mouse as well. Anyway, so that's what that one does. H1 acts in many different ways. It lets me navigate the different menus, so I can go to, am I in the hangar? Let's return to the service. Let's show you something if you've not seen Elite Dangerous at all. I'll show you this, but imagine this in VR. Really, chaps with PCs and VR want to try. So there we go, we're back in the space station. You're going to hear lots of different noises and things. Maybe you'll see a couple of ships flying around, a couple of NPC ships flying around and docking and taking off. But that H1 lets you navigate the different menus. Also lets you, this is by default by the way, so it's button B6. I'll hold that in, I'll move my H1 left, it will give me a close-up of these menus. This one lets me navigate the different systems, nearby planets. I can go and land on some of those planets. A lot of them have stations there, or space stations in space, which I'm at now. I'll show you that later. Go down a bit more, I can actually target other planets, other solar systems. This is a different solar system. I can actually target that. A by default is select, so I press A and lock destination. It won't mean much to you if you don't know Elite Dangerous, but B and X, these are by default, lets me go to the different menus in this context menu here on this left-hand panel. So I can go to contacts. If I need to contact the station, that's the station. If I need to contact any of these other ships flying around, it will let me contact them, or let me lock onto them and target them. And X will take me back to navigation. I can also go to things like system map. There we go. It gives you a different. Oh, this is the universe map. By the way, if you didn't know, Elite Dangerous is pretty much a one-to-one replica of our Milky Way, of our galaxy. So give us a galaxy view. There are hundreds and thousands of billions of planets. And I believe less than 1%, take this in for a moment, there's been millions of players playing Elite Dangerous, but less than 1% of the planets have been explored. You can actually go and explore them and your name will come up to them next time someone goes to see it. Less than 1%, I believe, currently have been explored. That's an amazing stat. Absolutely amazing. Let's come out of that. So anyway, that's what that button does, these buttons. If I press B7, B6 again, it will take me back to my center view. If I press B6 and right, it will take me to this menu. It lets me set up things like fire groups. Lets me see what modules I've got active, fire groups. There's a lot to take in Elite Dangerous, and I can't explain it in this one video because it's mainly about the Velocity One Flightstick. But that's just to give you an idea of what I've got set up on some buttons. I'll tell you what I'll do. Let's go and fly around, shall I? Use my H1 just to come down to launch. Press A. I'm go for departure. B7, B8 are my horizontal thrusters, so it'll move me up horizontally by pressing B7. B8 will take me back down again. Twisting, like I've mentioned, I want to line up with that exit there. Twisting the stick will actually just roll my ship. And let's put a bit of thrust in there. And take up my landing gear. Y will retract my landing gear. By the way, I did mention this. If I bring my throttle back, I'll stop. If I use the detent here, it will toggle me in reverse. Look, I'm reversing this ship now. Don't want to reverse, I want to go forward, so I've just toggled that again. Very nice. Those detents, I didn't mention them in my original review of the flight stick. Missed opportunity, but those detents are brilliant with Elite Dangerous. I've got this button here, B17, it targets those ships in front of me. That's a ship coming in to land. Don't crash into him. Look at that. Oh, and the noises are immense. Okay, if I go full forward and toggle that detent, it's like a little boost. It will boost the ship. Anybody who knows Elite Dangerous, I'm using the H1. There's a lot of controls, very confusing, but on the right-hand side of the screen here, it shows my engine, and I've just put all power to engines currently, so I can boost a bit more. I've left the no fire zone. Good opportunity to show you some other controls I've got set up. If I remember, I think this button deploys my hard point, so if I've got weapons, I don't have weapons, I've got a mining setup. And mining in Elite Dangerous is something completely different to what you may be used to. But for example, let me just get to D-scanner. If I jump into a system, I'll hold my trigger at the front of the stick. And if I had weapons, it would fire the weapons. That's just a scanner. I've got some kind of another scanner there. Prospector, these are little drones. I've got this button, this X, set up as my secondary fire at the moment. And there you go, it will just fire a limpet drone out. That would collect minerals if I was mining. Can I target that? There you go. Olympic Prospector. I've lost him. I'm going to leave him in space. This detent on this right-hand lever, it will open my cargo bay. Click it again. It will close my cargo bay. This button, B16 I believe it is my frame drive. I've got hard points out, so I'll press that button again to retract my hard points. Press that button. It will go to frameshift drive. And if I had another planet or solar system lock, you can hyperspace to another planet. So that's the general idea. Oh, by the way, if I didn't mention that, this button down here, if you can see that just below the X, big X, that cycles between all my different hard points, all my different weapons. It's a highly complex game, Elite Dangerous. I'm not going to explain it all in this video. But the Velocity One Flightstick, so compact, and I've got every button I need currently, that I use currently in the game, set up. There you go, that's the space station we just come out of. Let's target it. I need to get a bit closer, so I'll go full throttle and boost. So I get to around 7 kilometers or so. Then I can contact them. I'll boost again. There we go. That's lovely, those detents. Until you try them. Typically with the HOTAS 1 or other joysticks that I've used with Elite Dangerous or other HOTAS, you press a button to boost. That's okay. It's not quite as satisfying as using those detents. I'm close to the station. Let's just toggle reverse and reverse a little bit. I don't want to get too close. There we go. I'm reversing. Still slowing down. Now am I reversing? Now I'm reversing out now. Click it again. I'll go forward. Throttle. That's okay. Hold my B6. Go to my contacts menu on the left-hand side. Bit complicated, but I'll go to contacts. It's not a tutorial on how to play Elite. Just showing you how this flight stick works. Oh, go down to request docking. Permission authorized. So I need to land on 3.8. So I'm going to show you how the thrusters and control works. My only misgiving, the roll axis is a bit severe, and I don't believe there are sensitivities in Elite Dangerous to turn that down. So when you're rolling to match the entrance there. Thank you. When I'm rolling to match the entrance, because obviously until we get closer, gravity takes over then. There's gravity in the space station, and then you don't need to keep rolling. It's a bit severe on the Velocity One Flightstick with Elite Dangerous. Perfect in Flight Simulator, and it's good in Star Citizen. It's just a little bit severe here, and I can't alter the sensitivities, I don't believe. Let me just find my gate. 3.8. Have I flown past it? 3.8. I can't block the entrance because I'll get told off. Is that 3.8? There's 3.8 right in front of us. So I'll fly towards them. You can see I'm rolling. I can use my B8 to bring my horizontal thrusters to bring my altitude down. I've got these two buttons here set up as left and right lateral thrusters. So as you can see, I'm thrusting right there. I'll tell you what, I've set this up with VR in mind, but even when I'm not using VR, everything is so instinctive the way I've got this set up for myself. It suits me. Let me put my landing gear down. And I'll just thrust to the left slightly using those buttons. And I'll thrust down a little bit because I'm near the landing pad. And you get a little diagram there. You can see at the bottom of the ship letting you know how close you are to your landing zone. You've got to get right in the centre. And it's very easy to do with the setup I've got here. Bit of lateral thrust there. And bring my ship down for a landing. There we go. I used my H1 just to refuel. I've used a bit of refuel. Thank you very much. Do I recommend this with Elite Dangerous? Well, listen, when I first tried it, because none of the controls were set up properly, a couple of the default buttons were the roll wasn't set up. The roll was set up on this lever, which was strange. So I had to set everything up myself. I thought, oh, I'll just stick my HOTAS 4 in or HOTAS 1 in. And by default, you get a default scheme in Elite Dangerous with the Hold Task 1 and Hold Task 4 and Hold Task X. This doesn't. You have to set it up manually. When I set it up, I wouldn't go back to the Hold Task now, Hold Task 1. It's a small footprint, especially in VR. You've got your hands on this, you've got your mouse next to you, so easy. I know where all the buttons are close together. You've got those detents for reverse and thrust and cargo bay here. Buttons here for lateral thrust. It's just so instinctive and everything's so close at hand. I'm recommending this stick within that price range for Elite Dangerous. If you have a Hold Task 1, Hold Task 4, you're probably going to be okay with them. If you want to try something a little bit different, a little bit something more instinctive and easier to use once you've set it up, there is a bit of setup to do. It's a lovely flight stick to use. Okay, so that's the flight stick with Elite Dangerous. Let's now go to Star Citizen. Okay, so here you find me in Star Citizen. Now, if the quality doesn't seem to match my previous part with Elite Dangerous, that's because I'm running this on my desktop PC. Something I can't fathom really. My desktop PC is running a 1060, an old, a few generations ago, GPU, but it's got a good 1600 AF Ryzen processor, and I think that's making a difference. Lovely and smooth on my desktop. It's not the case on my laptop. What's this guy doing? That's Star Citizen for you. It's got lovely parts, very detailed. Oh, very detailed. It's just a bit buggy, especially with the NPCs. Yep, that's pretty normal. Yeah, that's just Star Citizen. NPCs still need a bit of work. By the way, let's just get you to this part. Let me just show you some of the beauty of Star Citizen. Very different, a lot smaller than Elite Dangerous in terms of planets. It's only got one solar system currently. But the amount of detail they pack into the cities here is incredible, and the game itself. Big war going on between Star Citizen and the Elite Dangerous players, which is the best. You know, they both have their merits. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more next generation Star Citizen. Look at that. At night time, this acts like a kind of disco, this place. You've got disco lights all over the place and music playing. Lovely game. Anyway, enough of that. If you thought Elite Dangerous seemed complex, wait till you get to this Star Citizen. I really had to go and look at YouTube videos, different sites on the internet to find where to bind my Hold Task. It's the first time about last week that I bound my Velocity One Flightstick to the Star Citizen. And essentially you have to go to option menus, key bindings. It shows you a keyboard here. You think, well, where's the joystick? Well, you have to go down here. Switch it to joystick Hold Task. You think, well, okay, I'm in Hold Task. Where do I bind the Hold Task? You have to go to Advanced Controls configuration. If you had a different Hold Task system, you can see here Logitech, Thrustmaster, Warthog rather, all the different ones you can set up here. They have default profiles X52, X56. You can read this for yourself. The Thrustmaster T1600, Hold Task X, etc., etc. You can choose one of these ready-made profiles. The Velocity One Flightstick unfortunately doesn't have one, so you really have to set things up from scratch with this one. And things like flight movements, I'll get into a ship in a moment. Pitch up, pitch down, that type of thing. I've got pitch to my Y-axis, yaw to my X, so similar to what I had in Elite Dangerous. Z-axis, twist axis on the stick. Strife up, strife down, similar to Elite Dangerous. It's like a horizontal thrust in many ways. Left and right, I've actually got that on my hat switch. I think that was by default. And I've got my left throttle as throttle sort of X, you know, the left hand lever as my throttle, and throttle back slider. I'll have to think of where I put that. I think, yeah, that's on my right-hand lever. So I can throttle backwards on that. Boost is on my D10, that's my left. I'll show you this in a moment. That's on my left lever. When I push it forward and hit that D10 switch, that's my boost. So, but you have to set these up, and a lot of them are just not, you know, auto land button 12. Didn't I have landing system? Not quite sure that's what I've got mine set up to. Anyway, I do have landing gear up and down set to my Y button and different various controls. Let's go back, return to game. I'll get to a ship and show you how the Velocity One Flightstick behaves and performs with Star Citizen. Okay, so I'm at the starport in Star Citizen. I'm just going to retrieve my ship.
Vehicle selected.
I think another player next to me is messing around, but never mind. You often get that sometimes with Star Citizen and other multiplayer, online multiplayer games. Hangar 4. Let's call elevator there. And we can go down. I'm just using keyboard and mouse for the moment just to get down to my ship. Let me just bring in the camera for recording the flight stick. There we go, so you can see the flight stick now. Let's get out this door before it closes. Let's hope nobody's called the elevator again. It should just open up again. There we go. And my ship should be there. It is indeed. So what I'll do, just using keyboard and mouse for now, when I'm walking around, I generally treat Star Citizen like a first-person shooter, essentially. Although I'm not shooting, looking around the different cities. It's just easier to control with the keyboard and mouse, looking around and walking around. Once I'm in this ship, though, get to my pilot seat. I'll leave the mouse alone. Get onto the Velocity One Flightstick. Now, it's just the way I prefer it in space games, but I use a button here to focus my attention, and I can use my mouse to look around. You can just look around a lot quicker with the mouse than you can with the hat switch, for example. That's the way I prefer it. If you want to, you can set up the hat switch to look around as Star Citizen. You can even use the trim switch for a function. I've not set it up personally, because I've got nothing to set it up to yet. But that even recognises within the game, so you can set up that trim switch too, or wheel rather. Let's just get to our Mobiglass. Don't worry about this. I'm just going to go to comms, friends, and even though the starport is not my friend, well, it might be. I'll just get them to open the doors. Any second. Ready to launch. So it's going to open the bay doors. You can see the level of detail in Star Citizen. Look at that. Yeah, it's very next gen. I've got my B7 and B8 set up for thrust up and thrust down, horizontal thrusters. Got this lever, left lever, to reverse backwards if I need to. Look at that. And this lever to reverse forward. Let's get out of the station. Raise my landing gear. Landing gear raised. Just thrust forward. Got the detent there as boost, so you can see boost to the left hand side. So I'm boosting away from the station at the moment. I'll just get some distance and then I'll come back and land. Let's just raise my altitude a little bit. Take the boost off now, so you don't need to toggle boost. Once you got boost on, it will just boost until that boost meter is empty. That's how Star Citizen works. The roll axis works really nicely in this sim. Really nicely, or in this game, on the Velocity One. It's a bit severe in Elite Dangerous. In Star Citizen, just works very nicely. Going from a mouse, when I play Star Citizen generally, before the flight stick, I was using a mouse and keyboard to control my ship. I can do it a little bit here. I kept it active just for that purpose. You can do it. It just takes a good while to get used to, and it can be a bit fidgety. Let's just move my flight stick. It will stop mouse control. What I'll do, I'll contact the station again and land there just to show you a little bit more of the controls. It's a world of difference. Using a flight stick or HOTAS to just using mouse and keyboard.
Please proceed to assigned landing bay.
I seem to... Now, it's a bit dark here at the moment. It does have day and night cycles. But it's lit up quite brightly there where I need to go. Let's just boost towards it. So there we go. I'm just boosting towards that station now. Not too close. If you bang into it, you can get fined or blow up your ship even. Doesn't take much to blow up ships in this game. Lovely to use. Now, I've not... I must confess, I only come and play Star Citizen a couple of times, a few times when new features are added. Not too au fait with space combat, but you can set up buttons to fire your lasers. There is a marine sort of shooting game where you can use that ship marine game, or whatever it's called. Mode, rather, where you can use and just fly and use your trigger button to shoot other ships down. Works well as the controls. Let's just slow my forward motion here. You can see where we need to go to. Very, very detailed. Slow my thrust. There we go. Drop my landing gear.
Landing gear deployed.
Bit easier to control and land than Elite Dangerous using this flight stick as well, I've noticed. It stops immediately, Star Citizen. I think that's it.
Landing complete.
Landing complete. Let's use my F6 just to focus so I can move my mouse and exit. The devil's in the detail, isn't it? This is why people love Star Citizen. I'm quite enjoying it. If you can get a free week, they have 3 weeks where you can play the game sometimes for free. You can try it on your system. Doesn't work too well on my laptop. Works beautifully on my desktop. And there you go. So, the Velocity One... Stay still. Velocity One Flightstick with Star Citizen. I recommend it. It's a low-cost budget flight stick. It works beautifully. Very compact. All the buttons are close. Couple of levers, detents that you can set up there. This one for reverse, that one for forward thrust. Boost on that. You can set up the other detent for something. Loads of buttons, lateral thrusters as well that you can set up. I recommend it. But do let me know your thoughts. Let me just stop the camera. Let me know your thoughts. Have you tried either the Velocity One Flightstick with either of these games? Have you tried it with other games? Do let people know your findings down below in the comments. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more, mainly flight simulator videos on their way. And I'll see you soon.